Well, howdy, folks. Hope you're having a good night. Sorry, looking around for the right pair of glasses to put on so I can see you. That'll make it a lot easier for us all. See, found the glasses where I can see you. Just required, a few months looking and finding a laptop bag that I hadn't used in months, and voila, I can see again. Hope you're well. How's your day been? Fairly busy day for me. Wound up down the Gold Coast, had a really great meeting with the Offey brothers, Paul and his brother Michael. Of course, Paul Offey, the Freedom Truck owner, treated so badly by the Australian Federal Police in the ACT last year, of course, when they arrested him and took his truck. They have since conflated charges, I think is the best way of describing what they've done. Charges they will in no way be able to prove, and we will certainly have a lot of evidence to prove a lot different. It's going to be a very interesting case, but it is the Supreme Court, and it's not one to muck around with. Paul's life is in the balance, so to speak. The charges that they have levelled against him, outrageous charges that they have levelled against him, are pathetic, really pathetic, but the ACT is a law unto itself down there when it comes to our judicial system. And there is another little organisation called COCA that has involved itself, but could only involve itself if the charges were upped to a significant level, whereby taking them out of the Magistrates' Court and placing them at the Supreme Court level. COCA got involved because they apparently would like to keep Paul's truck. They have a great habit. COCA's only job is to confiscate assets. They confiscate assets taken, maybe assets from crime, and I have no problem with them removing assets from people who've gained those assets through crime. Paul didn't gain the truck through crime. There was, at this point, no crime committed, no conviction recorded, and yet they have seized the truck and have made efforts to sell it. And fortunately, we were able to stop those efforts. And they've given up now. There was meant to be a hearing on the 4th of May where they were going to challenge the order in place to stop them from actively trying to sell the truck. Their plan, sell it for scrap, for whatever the scrap value was. They would hand the truck off then to a member who was willing to pay the scrap value for it. It would never go to a public auction. And that member, we believe we have on video, which is very interesting, expressing his great desire to have that truck. So we can show a great deal of very interesting things that COCA and the DPP in Canberra have tried to do. Interestingly, the way that it reads, it seems, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that all the proceeds of crime dollars that are returned, if you like, after the sale of an asset, are not returned to the ACT government. They are returned to a group among the legal fraternity, and that money is used to aid and educate the legal people in and around Canberra and trying to facilitate greater understanding and new understandings of the law, I think. Maybe not new, greater understanding, or better ways to interpret the laws we don't like. I don't know. They have a nice way of keeping the money, put it that way. A little bit interesting. Requires maybe a little more looking at the appropriate time, I think. At least Paul, he doesn't have to worry too much about what others are saying, particularly the police, because we have literally hours of video evidence that will back up every word of Paul's side of the story. In fact, that same video evidence will prove a great deal of lies coming from the other side. I look forward to the day this all gets to court. I mean, if the DPP and COCA in Canberra had half a brain, they would run a mile from this case. Paul is a solid boy. I mean, he is staunch. He's been offered all sorts of deals. Plead guilty to this lesser charge, this, you won't do that, plead guilty to this one, and that one will drop all the rest of them. He refuses to plead guilty to something he did not do. And good on him. Bloody good on him. He is a staunch lad, suffers 3 brain injuries, has God knows what sort of insurmountable issues ahead of him in his life, and yet this, interesting mob down in Canberra have decided to pick on him, and thinking maybe, through his disability, he might be a bit of a pushover, an easy win for them. That's how the DPP works in Canberra. The DPP and legal aid, interestingly enough, work more or less cheek by jowl out of the same offices. Now, they have to live and work with each other. They get to do deals. And interestingly, the first letter that was received from legal aid by the boys stated in the first line, "My first duty is to the court." If you ever have a lawyer that says to you his first duty is to the court, get another lawyer, because your lawyer should have a first duty to you, the client, not the court. But they will tell you what they're doing. "Oh, my first duty is to the court." Get another friggin' lawyer if you've got one whose first duty is to the court, because that means that lawyer is going to do everything he can to push you into a position where you will negotiate your way into a guilty plea, thinking that, you've got a better chance of getting off. If your heart tells you, stay strong, that you have not done anything wrong, then do not ever plead guilty to something you believe you did not do. It's that simple. Because that guilty plea, no matter how minor it is, will stick with you for life. And it has implications later in life. A job interview, a job application. Have you ever been convicted of something? Yes. Oh, what were you convicted of? Oh, I was convicted of driving at police. Not aggravated driving at police as the charge currently stands. I was convicted of driving at police. Now, what's a prospective employer going to look like, particularly if that job happens to be involving driving? Now, Paul is fairly limited in some of the things that he can do, but driving certainly isn't one of them. That's why he had the truck, and the truck was set up under a limo license. He was going to be taking kids for rides in the truck. It was involved in movies and will be again, I think. There'll be a movie made about this. Absolute farce, I am sure, at some stage down the track, and maybe the truck gets to star as itself. I certainly think that'd be appropriate. But Paul's ideal job is driving. So if he was going to go to an employer and say, "Yes, I'm a good driver, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all sorts of other things," and then, "Have you ever been convicted of a crime?" "Oh, yeah, drive at police." That's not a good look, and it will stay with him for life. And then he's got to go through the shit fight of the story to say, "Oh, well, this was all bullshit," and da-da-da-da-da-da, all so that the girl who was running his legal aid case could get a tick against her name because she's working for the court, saying, "Righto, well, we got this one," And I'm not blaming the legal aid people. From what I understand, the DPP and the legal aid departments in Canberra are underfunded, understaffed, and under a great deal of pressure. Pressure both from the numbers and the type of work they are doing, but also political pressure. Now, I ask myself, why would you have a very young team in Canberra in the prosecutorial and legal aid areas? Why would you have young, relatively inexperienced people running that? Having met the DPP in Canberra, certainly not an elderly bloke. He's currently on 4 weeks holiday, while many others are reassessing some of the decisions he made around the Bruce Lehman and oh God, I've forgotten her name now. The girl out of Canberra, anyway, the one that was tied up with Lisa Wilkinson. I know you're shouting the name at me. Hang on, let me flick over to the comments. You'll tell me who that is. Brittany Higgins. There it is. I didn't have to get your comment. I knew it had come to me. Brittany Higgins case. Well, some of the choices that they made around the Brittany Higgins saga have blown up in their face, and it's become quite clear that police and the DPP were at odds about the charges and various other things, but the DPP was keen to push it through. very keen to push it through. Why? Could it have been a political influence in there? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. Worth asking the question. Hard to ask that question, though, because the DPP is currently on 4 weeks stress leave, or just leave. I'm not sure if it's stress. But it is interesting. He did seem to take it just after the whole Brittany Higgins thing blew up. I can tell you he's going to want another 4 to 6 weeks when this one blows up with Paul Offey too. The decisions that the DPP have made in this regard are abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent. If the AFP, if the DPP were doing their jobs, they would have thrown this out in the AFP's face and chastised them strongly for the bullshit they tried to pull. However, we're happy to do that in court, because if they're stupid enough to get us there, boy, there's going to be a lot of people in Canberra to support Paul Offey in that court case. I can tell you. And I hope you are going to be part of it. It's going to be a very, very interesting case. It won't go, more than 2 or 3 days, I wouldn't think. Although we have the potential to bring in a witness list that is significantly long, like a witness list extending to 30 or more witnesses. 30 or more witnesses who have their own video to back up their testimony. It'll be damning. And I look forward to potentially witnessing that. And I hope you come to Canberra to witness that too, if they are stupid enough to go and do it. But it will certainly expose some of the disgusting work that has been done in Canberra by those that are meant to represent we the people. And I can tell you, it's a pit of filth. But a lovely place to live if you're looking to go down and buy a house. I know some people who are selling one. Really good place. Just saying. Thought I'd mention it. Last night, speaking of the pit of filth, John Wilson and I discussed the John Durham Report. I hope you had a look at that. Had the chance to go over to vofhq.com, click on the criminal link or criminal trial link, and you will find the Durham Report there available to be downloaded in its entirety, all 316 pages of it. Don't feel you have to read it all, and if you're worried about 316 pages, about the bottom third of every page is filled up with the references they use. So some cases it's only a few lines on one page you're actually reading, and then a whole flog-load of references, which you don't have to read. So unless you want to go and look it up and fact-check what they're saying. But you can be pretty well assured that this report by the Special Counsellor, John Durham, is very factually backed up, and you don't need to check the bona fides on that one, I promise you. So further to that, I got up this morning and I was thinking, well, what do we do? How do we prosecute this? How do we move it a little bit forward? So what did I do? After thinking about it for a little while, I thought, well, bugger this, I'll send them an email. So at about 10 to 11 this morning, I sent this to them. Let me read it to you in case you can't read it. It says, "Hi, I'm trying to find someone from the AFP that would be interested in coming on my online show, Voice of Freedom, to discuss what, if any, implications there might be following the release of the final Durham report in the USA last week. The Durham report outlined significant Australian involvement in the early stages of the Russian collusion scandal. It highlights a great number of unlawful measures taken by the FBI and other agencies, all with Five Eyes partner status. The Durham report is damning of the FBI, who I note is a key partner of the AFP. The people have a right to know if the AFP have been compromised by their Five Eyes partners' lies, now proven in the Durham report. Many names mentioned in that report are currently facing congressional investigation and serious charges, including treason, which carries the death penalty. The AFP is filled with many dedicated professionals, many of whom risk their lives on a daily basis to keep the people of Australia safe. I and my listeners and viewers want to thank the members of the AFP for their service and pray for their continued safety. We the people trust the AFP, but it's clear the AFP cannot trust its FBI partners to provide reliable, fact-based, researched intelligence that is not biased or complete lies, as the Durham report has shown in exquisite detail. I look forward to your reply and our chat. And I've just said, if you want to call me, send me an email and I'll send you my number. This afternoon, I got a reply. Actually, I wonder what time I got that reply. 12:15, so it'd been there a bit over an hour. Thanks for your email. Unfortunately, we are unable to facilitate your interview request. That came from someone called Rachel Lee, who is the Chief of Staff of the AFP National Media Centre. Her phone number is there. So that's one up. I might give her a call tomorrow and ask why it's unfortunate they can't facilitate my interview request. Maybe you'd like to send her an email. Don't know if you can see it, rachel.lee@afp.gov.au. And maybe you would like to ask some of those same questions. Have we not a right to know whether or not the AFP has possibly worked on erroneous information? I think we probably have a bit of a right to know that. I'll try and blow that up a little bit more so everybody can see it if you so desire. I don't suggest for a moment that you pick up the phone and bombard this lady with phone calls. That's not what this is about. But I believe we have a respectful right to ask, hey, are you aware what the Durham Report says about the FBI? And if not, maybe we can help you. But if you are aware of it, then surely there's some questions that need to be answered. Surely there are. Australia's involvement is significant in this issue. We have a right to know if our AFP has been compromised in some way. And I'm not suggesting the AFP themselves have initiated the compromising, but if you're in an intelligence organisation like Five Eyes, and one of those partners, the FBI, feeds you information, or conversely, as it worked, I think, in this case with the Alexander Downer in particular, they fed the information to the FBI. Well, I'm sure we have the right to ask, hey, what went on there? How did Downer get this information? Who in the AFP was involved in that? Sending all that information overseas. Why did it take 3 or 4 months? Because that's the time difference. There was, I want to say, the Downer thing happened in February, March, and they didn't actually let the Yanks know until June or July that this sort of thing had happened. So what was going on in the interim period there? Were we trying to source information, trying to qualify? Were we doing the bona fides on it? Did we actually pass incorrect information to the FBI? That could be a significant problem. I just think we have the right to ask these questions. Maybe, and I'm not for one second suggesting that everybody who's watching should bombard Rachel Lee with emails or phone calls or anything like that. But maybe we could start calling our talkback radio stations in our capital cities and our local areas. Maybe we can start trying to raise this as a question for our local media to cover. Now, bear in mind, the local media have been paid off. The owners of those media companies have been given 12 months tax-free, or a tax-free 12-month period, which I think I have heard is being extended because of their support for the whole jibbity-jab message all the way through, and continuing that way. So they were getting a 12-month tax rebate. It wasn't tax-free, it was a tax rebate. So they pay their tax, but they get it all back. How does that work out when a radio station or a TV station sales rep walks into your business that is still recovering after nearly being killed during the last couple of years, after the government boot was put on your business's throat and your family and you just survived? In waltzes one of these primped up sales reps who says, oh, I've got a great deal for you. You're going to pay, $5,000 plus GST. What's going to be your reply? My reply would be, jam it up your ass. You give me the tax-free deal because you're not paying tax. So you give me the tax-free deal. If you don't have to pay tax, why do I? And why should I be paying you your bonus? Because that's where the money's going, remember. Every cent of tax you pay to an advertiser, radio, TV, or print, Every cent of tax you pay to them comes back to them. Are they telling you that when they're coming in and selling it to you? Our media is corrupt as the rest of them, folks. As corrupt as the rest of them. Why do you think Ben Fordham doesn't want to talk to me? We've had this conversation off the air. He doesn't want to touch it. And I did tell him he wants to get his manager onto, Channel 9 management, 9 broadcasting management, because Ben, in great part, is responsible for the success of the program in Sydney. And he should get his share of that windfall that's coming their way. Every one of those broadcasters should get their share of their management's windfall, their tax-free rebate. If you're working for one of these networks, doesn't matter what size network it is, small, large, medium, you are covered under this grant, let's call it, from the government. It's only to Australian media companies, only to Australian media companies. So if you own a media company, congratulations, you'll get that tax-free rebate. I think all you've got to do is flag that you want it. And there are plenty of businesses who are flagging that, trust me. I'm not sure they've made it completely transparent to all small media businesses. They predominantly only want the big media people to get it, right? But I know plenty of little media companies, little voiceover companies. I mean, my little voiceover company could probably apply for it, although I never did one single ad to suggest to anybody they should go and get a stick up their nose shoved into their brain or participate in some kind of medical experiment. Never did I do one of those reads. So, yes, maybe we need to ask a few questions of a lot of people. Rachel Lee might be one of them, but, the AFP certainly have questions to answer. And if they don't want to answer them here on the Voice of Freedom, then maybe we can pressure some radio stations into asking them on our behalf. So if you feel that way, your local talkback channel, ring them up when they've got a free segment and get on and say, hey, I've got a great question. Shouldn't we be a bit worried about the FBI's involvement with our Australian Federal Police under the Five Eyes arrangement, given that the Durham Report has revealed in detail just how corrupt the FBI is? It's a valid question we all should be able to ask, I believe. Yeah, well, Ray Hadley won't talk to me either, except to abuse me. Thank you to the Galactic Larrikin. He can think of something else they all deserve to receive. I couldn't agree more with you, mate. Could not agree more. But, have a think about doing that. It's just a way. We're going to have to raise the conversation. And if we can't raise the conversation, how is it ever going to be heard? So whichever way you feel the urge, I would have thought, let's not inundate. I don't want a charge from the AFP that I'm harassing them. That's the last thing and last intention I have. I am disappointed that a one-line response, we are unable to give you your interview, is forthcoming. A better reason would be, a reason would be beneficial, but I don't think they're up for giving those too much either somehow. FCB's going to done another release, obviously. A lot of people are talking about FCB. Yep, he is great. I've actually sent him emails. He never replies, so I don't know. Maybe I've said or done something to upset him. Doesn't really worry me, but there you go. Yes, that's it's not just Rockhampton. It's practically everywhere. You can walk down a street in any town, I think, and you'll see a sandwich board out the front of a chemist, or there'll be a notice somewhere in the local hospital that you can go in and still get yourself jabbed up. I noticed they're pushing the flu jab very hard at the moment, and yet 79% of people in Australia have not taken a flu jab this year. Congratulations! I think everybody's just a little over vaccine talk at the moment, but older folks will continue taking it. They've been doing it forever, doing it for years. It hasn't killed them yet. And some of them are fairly fatalistic, including my mum, who says, "Oh, well, if it kills me, I've had a bloody good life. I'm nearly 90." So, well, how do you argue against that sort of mindset, really? All the grandkids are grown up, so it doesn't look like we're going to have any great grandkids in the near future. So, yeah, she's probably ready to shuffle off to that great golf course in the sky. Ange, what have you got to say here? Hello, Ange. Hello, Craig. I'd like to chat with Rachel, see if she can answer why mainstream media via political journalists reported on the road of my house hours before it actually happened. Yeah, Ange, that could be a very interesting conversation. And they were federal police that raided your house. So that would be a very interesting conversation to have. Why don't you try? Send her an email. Let me know how that goes. Or give her a call. Yeah, there is... I haven't done that search, Appy. A good search of the symbols on the AFP website gives some interesting connections to some international symbols of concern. Now, thanks very much. I've had a big day. I was hoping to get an early night tonight, and guess what I'm going to be doing? Thank you. Have another bit of a glance down here. What else have we got? Yeah, that's another good question. The ATO is always an interesting... always an interesting question pile. Well, okay, how do we take down the media, Paul? I mean, I worked in it for years. I'm still struggling to figure out how to actually bring it down, because at the end of the day, the decision makers are not the people that you hear on the radio or see on the TV. They are much higher up and much more anonymous in the scheme of things. So how do we take the media down? The only way that I see we can start having an effect is to call in. That's the only way I can see there to be an effect. Now, there's a difference between calling in and harassing, and you have to be careful how you play that game. But particularly as they're very precious at the moment, as evidenced by how 2GB and Ben Fordham handled that business with Guru. They're very precious about it. They do not want to be put into positions where they might be made to explain themselves. And if you give them an opportunity to lay some kind of false AVO type charge upon you, they will definitely go and do it. So think about what you're going to do and how you're going to do that before you pick up the phone 55 times in 2 hours and try and get on a show. Particularly if a producer tells you they're not going to talk to you about that subject, or they don't want to talk about that subject, or that's not what it's on today. That's where you have to become creative about how you get on the air. You tell the producer you're going to talk about one thing and then come on and talk about something else. All they can do is let you have your say or take you out and delay. The key to that is there is a 7 to 9 second delay some stations run. So as long as you can keep yourself from saying or doing anything that gives yourself away for 9 or 10 seconds, then you will be into the call deep enough so that they can't just dump you. Some of your message will get out. And that's all you need. You need to get some of the message out. You need to see people who are listening need to hear the radio station hosts getting uncomfortable about asking or answering these kinds of calls where they're being asked, hey, listen, we listen to you because you've been pretty good telling us information and we've trusted you. Why won't you talk about this? Why won't you find out the answers to this question? Why won't you ask the AFP if they feel or are reviewing the information they've received from the FBI in light of the Durham Report's findings? Because that's essentially what we want to know. I think there's a lot more going on at the AFP at the moment, and that's probably because Alexander Downer is involved right at the head of this. Keefe, love your work. Hello to the Roys, by the way. Missed saying hello to the Roys. Oh, I think I missed saying hello to everybody. No, Aussie, Sue and Paul. I can see you both there. I know that the absolutely stunningly beautiful Sunflower is in the room as well. Angela, sorry, Ange is here. Yeah, I saw her. And Michelle. Hello, Michelle. Lovely to see you. I did see very early on up in the top of the room that my favourite donkey lady is in town too. I want to say she was number 4 in the room. Let me just go and check. Scroll right the way back up the top. Oh, no, you're not quite number 4, but Sandy's pretty bloody close. So great to have you in the room from an early night. The donkeys must have gone down early tonight. I guess that's all I can say. I did see an interesting, or I did receive rather an interesting picture today from somebody who's out Ipswich way. Ipswich Costco are currently selling this. So there you go, $149 apparently. I've never been to a Costco in my life, but I think it says 48 meals and a few other bits and pieces. Quite a lot of stuff there. Emergency food supplies for up to 5, I can't read it, 5 something weeks, maybe. Might be weeks. I don't think it'll be years. $149 Costco Ipswich. Amazing what you can find on the shelves these days, don't you think? Little bit weird. Let me skim back down to the questions. Yeah, I read that story this morning, Michelle. In Victoria, a toddler was found alone in an apartment, the body of his mother. Police took 2 days to carry out a welfare check. Apparently, the father, or at least the mother's boyfriend, was also found on the floor beside her. It looks like a murder-suicide at this stage. So, yeah, that's fairly tragic stuff, and we're going to find a lot more of that happening. Evening, Bradley, you're in town. And still yelling, I notice. I'm just seeing if there are any questions here I've missed so far. All right. No, can't see anything too far that I've got to. What have you put up here, Bradley? We the people have a big problem. Yeah, we do. Wow, they've done everything they can to get you in their business, mate. Everything they can. And they continue to do it. They have no shame at the moment. Have you noticed? Absolutely no shame. I mean, we've had a couple of interesting retirements in the last week or so. There has been a pretty interesting series of questions that were asked by Senator Antic, from memory, of Burgess, the head of ASIO, about Australian journalists who are on the ASIO payroll, or have they inserted people into the Australian media? Burgess, the head of ASIO, refused to reply in open, just not something they would reveal. And he went on to stipulate, while they don't do anything illegal, what they do has to remain secret. Otherwise, the baddies would know what they do. Now, he makes a fair point, I am sure. But I have no doubt there is a lot of other stuff going on that, well, who is the arbiter of what's legal? Them? Because we have certainly seen a great deal of evidence that if the AFP are the arbiters of what is lawful, we're in all sorts of shit. And fortunately, the message seems to be spreading around other places too. Looks like Costco North Lakes are selling those emergency ration packs as well. I wonder if this is something, Paul, that's come out of America. Costco being a big American company, have stores all over the place there. There are a lot of preppers in America. So having never been into a Costco, as I say, not because I'm biased, I've just never lived close enough to one to justify buying the ticket to get in or whatever it is. I've always been interested to go in and have a look, though. I don't even have a friend who goes to Costco, as far as I know. And that would mean, where's the nearest one to me then? That would be North Lakes, I guess. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really. And it'd be interesting to go out there one day and just have a look. But yeah, I wonder if they get those sort of stocks because they are big ticket items in the USA. I also wonder how many of them they're selling here in Australia. Be interesting to see. So if you happen to be a Costco regular and you've seen those shelves, keep an eye on them. See whether or not many of them get sold. If you have the chance, pick one up, crack one open. Let's see what American emergency food rations will be like. I guarantee you the cheese will be orange, if there's cheese in there. What is it with their orange cheese? Yeah, Kev, that's the idea. Stick away from the flu jabs. Yeah, I think they nearly tried. They tried very hard to kill my mum with the flu jab 2 years ago, and it took her ages to get over it. Fingers crossed. It doesn't infect us all too badly. Won't affect you at all if you don't get it. And like I said, 79% of us haven't got it. That's bloody great stuff. Lots of spraying going on at the moment. Yes. So my Gold Coast mates that follow the flights, been seeing a lot of it around Queensland lately. I have been doing some investigations. Some of these flights are actually tracking things like deer. They're doing deer counts. I have heard that they can do koala counts and that kind of thing too, but I do know that deer is something they do track. And one of those flights the other night did look a lot like it would be something for along those reasons. But they have since sent me about another 50,000 photos of same aircraft doing, well, difficult to say they're looking for deer in the places where they're boxed. They're doing these boxed or grid flying. And there is some evidence of spray nozzles and some pictures available of spray nozzles coming off the bottom of the wings of those aircraft. Now, I can't verify those pictures. That's why I'm not showing them to you. I'd much prefer to go and take my own. So I guess we'll wait and see if I get able to take my own. Be amazed what you can see at a couple of 100 feet at the end of a runway as a plane comes over you to take off or land with a good camera. Just saying. Oh, no. There you go, Paul. 86-year-old, just got the flu jab. And I'm very sad to hear that. That's no good. Costco can read the room, apparently. I think you're probably right there, Bradford. Yeah, Sandy's got the right idea. Stay away from any damn jab. Oh, and Sandy, that doctor that you and I have been talking of recently, his case is currently in front of the Supreme Court in Brisbane. I know a few people who were there yesterday at the court to bear witness. I haven't had a report from them yet to find out exactly what went on there yesterday, but I will try and find that out for you. And we'll see what progresses in the weeks ahead for him. What else is going on? American cheese tastes awesome, does it? Oh, I don't know. The last time I was in America, I was just blown away at cherry Coke, I think, but I was young enough that was all I was interested in. I wasn't taking note of the color or the taste of the cheese. I do remember it was on everything, though. I was only a kid the last time I was there. I think I was 10. So, yeah, the cheese was just migrating to orange. Yes. Bradley. Yeah, you're 100% right. The only cheese I would really like is the cheese made on the farm. It comes straight from the cow and the farmer. It doesn't have all the preservatives and crap added into it, but that does mean you wind up eating a lot of cheese really fast, gets you really fat. Not a nice thing. Okay, Fullerton, I think the plane was low enough to be under the radar. Sunflower, having a vague idea where you live. No, you are underneath. Well, at certain flight levels, you're under controlled airspace still in your part of the world, and not just from the Sunshine Coast Airport, but still in Brisbane controlled airspace as well. That is only at certain flight levels. Now, where you are, the lower levels are pretty clear because there is a certain corridor the jets have to take coming into and out of the Sunshine Coast Airport. So if an aircraft was flying along the coast, for instance, it's pretty okay, except around the runway. If the runway inbound comes in over the ocean, then they've got to be a little bit careful. They change other directions or flight heights then because the aircraft are on approach. However, up your way, there has been a lot of spraying in the last couple of days, and it has been out to Wanton Way and all the way out to Karoi and other areas, other wooded sorts of areas in the forests. So, look, I don't think they're counting deer up there or koalas for that matter. It just seems to be a little weird. And they actually basically coded the Sunshine Coast to Redcliffe, along the coast and inland to over the M1 and into the Sunshine Coast hinterland. They were doing that at a flight level of about 6,500 feet. That gives them what they call VFR clearance, and all the jets coming out of the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane will be above them. Won't have to worry about that sort of traffic. They do get warned about it, but as they're flying what's called a box, the jets know that the aircraft are going to be working in a very contained area, so they don't even bother thinking about them. That's an interesting one, Graham. I haven't read that myself, but maybe I haven't got to that part yet, or if I did, I've missed it. That I am aware that they are able to conduct illegal activities to a certain level. This has always been the case, and it will be the case within our police services as well, because, and I used to know one, well, I didn't really know him, but I met a guy once who was an undercover police officer, and he was working with motorcycle gangs. And he was given permission to do certain illegal things. He could stand over people, he could fight, he could smoke drugs. He couldn't sell the drugs, I don't think. However, he could make drug buys. There are the whole heap of things he couldn't do. He couldn't participate in a murder. There were limits. So, and for the most part, it was just, commit crimes so that you can blend in, so that you can build your rapport within, in this case, a bikie gang, and build your way, some trust into the group. Eventually, though, if you're going to become a 1%er, you're going to be asked to do something that probably isn't covered under that little get out of jail free card. And I have no doubt that Australian police agencies do have that sort of deal in place. But once again, as I say, they'll be able to take drugs, they'll be able to sell drugs, but they're not going to be able to go and kill somebody or be involved in a murder or help plan or set up or all that kind of thing. That's going to cause real issues, and that's where obviously they would let their counterparts know in the boys in blue, and one would hope that they would let the person who was going to be murdered know that there might be a problem, that they'd got some intel from somewhere. So yeah. Wow, Ange, that's sad. Is that your grandfather? I hope not. If it is, my condolences. God, 3 weeks after getting the flu and the pneumonovax jab. Wow. Well, he certainly lined up for it. Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, I'm very sad to hear that. Sending prayers, Ange, absolutely. All of us are doing that. And we should be sending prayers to the AFP as well. We should be praying for someone in there to stand up. I'm sure there are whistleblowers in the AFP. Absolutely sure of it. Get a hold of me. Love to have a chat. There you go, man. Excellent. Righto, Bradley. Have not had a flu shot since I left home at 16. I also use caps for quoting. Good on you, man. Yeah, all right. No, he's recovering well. Okay, that's good news. Pardon me. Yeah, that's excellent news. Yes. Now, I do have that. Now, do I have it? I don't think it's on this computer. So, yeah, that was an interesting one. I think I heard that this morning, Elizabeth. I'm not sure if others have. This morning, a very interesting warning of a shutdown came out of South Africa. It was a South African minister, apparently, talking about how things are going to change globally, financially. He was referring to, but not using the name Jasara, and he is suggesting that it's happening very, very soon. I've got a mate in South Africa. I'll give him a call shortly after I get off the show, and I'll see whether or not he's heard anything about that. He is not what you would call a believer on our side. He is living in an area of Johannesburg where crime is rife, and and personal safety is a real thing. You have to be careful when you're driving on the roads. You've got to lock the car down, and that's going to guarantee they're not going to get into it. But quite often, people, if you're stopped at lights, will just get up, get into your car, and point a gun in your face. They will rob you. They'll take your car. And at the moment, many, particularly white South Africans, are sitting at home behind high electrified fences and bolted doors and windows, trying to stay safe. The country has been falling apart for the last, forever. But the country has really begun tearing itself apart in the last 6 to 12 months. And a lot of that has to do with the corruption, obviously, in the South African government. Ramaphosa, who is the president of South Africa, was elected on an anti-corruption platform. And it seems that he was either stymied or suckered or bribed into the whole thing. South Africans felt that Ramaphosa was unbribable. He was a very wealthy man already. It's now probably clear, at least to some, that he gained that wealth by being corrupt, because he's shown his stripes once he reached the presidential side, or the power of president, and has just continued to rape the country, he and his groups. There are a number of groups, and look, Ramaphosa is just the latest president. Of course, the one prior to him, he and his family are facing thousands of charges of corruption. I think he built a pool for 141 of his nearest relatives in every one of their homes. He may have built them a home as well. That's the sort of money that bloke was stealing out of it all. So South Africa, please God, is going to get an infusion of love, goodness, grace, and dollars real soon. And with a bit of luck, it will bring their country together. Pardon me. Billy, yes, I remember Stinger's great show. It was based on true Vic Pole stories. Yes, I believe that was the case too. In fact, when I was going to radio school, I used to live opposite the undercover police, I don't know what you'd call it, garage, for the want of a better term. Yeah, it was an interesting. And it was in St Kilda, of all places. Yeah, they had a lot of interesting things going on there. 3 a.m. planes are in the air each morning. Yep, they are. We're hearing about these planes getting up very early in the morning, flying, doing their spray run, so to speak, and then being back on the ground again before midday. Some of these aircraft are traveling great distances. They're flying out of Melbourne or flying out of New South Wales, sometimes out of South Australia or Western Australia to come to Queensland do a couple of days here, then they'll fly down to South Australia, they'll fly back over to New South Wales, back to Victoria, back up to Queensland. There is no rhyme or reason to where they go or what they are doing. Going to be interesting. Domestic flights banned in France from next week. Wow, that's going to be... I haven't heard that, Vesna, so, okay. Breaking news. If that's the case, well, next week would coincide with a few interesting other things, wouldn't it? Stu Peters, Billy, what were you saying? Stu Peters... Pardon me. Yeah. Yes. Yes. They've got it in all our medications. All our medications, any kind of thing they're going, any injectable into your body in a hospital, I think you could just about guarantee has been infected with graphene at a nanoscale. And they are going to be held accountable for all of that. There you go. They're saving CO2 emissions in France. Mid. I tell you what, Australian farmers could take a leaf out of the French farmers' book. The French farmers, when they protest, don't just bring the tractors, they bring the shit spreaders as well. So for all you dairy farmers, if you happen to have a manure spreader, fill the bastard up, bring it to town, because we need to put these shit-dwelling bastards in a pile of it where they belong. The decisions that they are making are killing people all over the world. Ma Baker, righto. Ma's in Pretoria. And you haven't heard anything about the financial thing. Ma, I will try and find that grab tonight, again, off Telegram somewhere, and I'll have it in the show for you tomorrow. I can't vouch for the veracity of it. I don't know what the said minister's name is, although I think it is mentioned, or what he is minister of. But please, God, something good happens for you guys in South Africa. My mate lives in Joburg, and I can hear the last 12 months, his depression has really got to him, and it's not the only one. We talk about it. We talk about what's going on with his friends and in his group, and everybody is feeling it. The stresses are things that we as Australians have never felt and probably would find it hard to understand. So just know that our thoughts are with you guys, Ma, and thoughts and prayers that things happen in South Africa soon, because I know it is a place I want to come and visit. I want to go and see Nick. I want to go flying around South Africa, or maybe just Africa completely, in a light plane. And my mate Nick happens to know a few boys who've got light planes and might help. So, yeah, I'm very keen to come there, but he's warned me off at the moment. Not that I could afford to get there anyway, but he's warned me off. It's too dangerous at the moment. Far too dangerous. So I hope that changes for the better very, very soon. You reckon from July, Redneck? All right, well, I'd say July is going to form part of it. Just as much as April or September or next July. I mean, who knows? Who knows? 107 is now telling us, I think somebody was telling me the other day that he's now saying there will be no lockdown. You know, they're not going to do that now. They're going to bring it all back. They're going to restore faith in government, going to restore faith in the police. Frankly, I don't know how they're going to restore faith in the police and the judiciary without removing them all and having we, the people, put people we trust back in their place. Because currently, the level of trust that all Australians have in both their local and federal police is at an all-time low. At an all-time low. Recruiting numbers for all police forces in Australia are down to buggery. They are not meeting numbers. That's why we've got permission now to go and get police from other countries, or just migrants who want to come in and think they might like to be a policeman. You'll have to be the right kind of policeman if you're going to be that kind of person. But if you are a migrant and show that, you will jump to the front of the line, my friend. Have absolutely no doubt. So, yeah, I just wish there were so many good South Africans that should be in Australia. It's just a pity. Yellow fever injection? Nobody told me that. Bloody hell. Well, I might have to be resigning myself to seeing South Africa via YouTube then, because I think I've made I think I've made a decision. I am not going to volunteer to have anything jabbed in my body for any reason until faith has been restored in the medical system. That's my personal choice. I will fight them to the death if they try to stick something in me. I'm just not prepared to have it done. I don't trust any of the medical fraternity anymore. The ones that are still in it are fucking liars. Greedy fucking liars. Murderers is how I view them. Fucking murderers. You don't want me in your surgery, trust me. I'm the last person you want in your fucking surgery. You try and shove one of those things near me, you'll be surprised how far and how deep I can shove it into you. So, no, I won't go in for a flu shot. I won't let them give me a tetanus shot. I'd prefer to die of tetanus. So, no, that's my personal decision. I don't expect anybody else to follow that, unless you feel as strongly about the bastards as I do. Trust me, if they ever were to forcibly inject me, I'd be sending one or two of them to meet our maker before I got there, because I consider that an attack on my life, and I will fight for my life. Believe me. As I know, you will fight for yours. We will fight for our lives together. We will fight for our rights, and we will get them back. Patience, timing. Patience and timing. That's what it takes. Billy, you're up too. Any doctor or nurse who injects me. Yeah, mate. You and I will be making the 6 o'clock news. Absolutely. I did tell the boys in camera there's a reason why I never came down to protests. I'm not the person you want at a protest. If I see a copper, doing something bad to you, I'm likely to step up and do something stupid and give us all a bad name. So that's why I don't go to protests, because sometimes I get so angry that it is best I view from a distance, because I will make some very serious points. I will go down fighting, but at the end of the day, it would probably be a detriment to our movement rather than a positive for it. And I'm not about being negative or introducing negative things into our movement. I'm all about positivity. I'm all about bringing us together. And it is together that we will beat these bastards, not by one or two people individually sacrificing themselves, being the martyr to the cause. It's, families like we're growing here and others who are growing similar sized families, many of whom are sharing between families. We've got members in all. This is a great thing. We have to stop attacking each other, and we have to stop thinking about ourselves. Interestingly, there was one person came out last night with a great live that really was all about me. Me. I. That's all I heard. And I watched pretty much all of it. All I heard was me. I. Nobody's saying it was me. It was me. Nobody's giving me the recognition that I deserve. And it makes me sick. Just makes me sick. It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. This isn't a race. This isn't a who broke what story first kind of thing. Much less to expect to be lauded over and, heaped praise upon because you actually did something good for the people. Get over yourself. Get over yourself and stop slandering and defaming people while you have these little rants, or you might find you'll have to go to court and prove exactly what you've said. And I don't think you can do that. In fact, I know you can't do that. So pull the ego out of it and go to work. Prove to everybody that it wasn't a fluke, I guess. Prove to everybody that you can actually work with people. Maybe that's another tip I can give you. Outside of that, I don't really care. And I certainly don't care what you have to say about me. So it's all good. Yeah, you're right, George. We do all know someone like that. Somebody who is filled up with ego and decides that it's all about me and all about me and I, and you can listen to it. You can hear it in what they're saying to you. It will be about them, all right? It won't be about us. It won't be about how we can build together, how we can help each other. It'll be about me and why I did this or I did that and I didn't get this and I didn't get that. Nobody patted me on the back. Woe is me. Get over it. Get over it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. There's enough egos floating around in this freedom movement already. It doesn't need to have another pipsqueak one thrown in on top of it. And lead by example then, and show people that you can lead by example and drop the ego, drop the bullshit. And maybe some of the others who I think you bleat on with might follow. But you're all much of a muchness. Egocentric amateurs. Sorry. I don't mean that in a really nasty way. It's just a statement of fact. And you could all be so much more, but your ego's in the way. Sadly, you could all be so much more. But there you go. Abby, if you need to see a doctor, you could probably book and pay for a room. And yes, I probably could do that. You're right. And I probably know doctors who might do that for me. The problem is I despise the doctors because they're still working in their surgeries. And I have no doubt if someone walked in and said, give me the jab, they would. I don't think they would question it. One would. Another one, I don't know. He'd just take the money. I might be overspeaking it, but there are too many signs up in too many surgeries still saying, come and get your free jab. What number are you up to? Number 4, number 5, number 6? So, yeah. Well, this is a reason why I don't go into Twitter and Discord and all those sorts of little things, because I find the only people in there have, the hide of a mouse, but the voice of a lion. It's a tin kettle, a kettle drum, if you like. And they all get around and gee each other up, and the noise that they all create makes them think that they're standing in the middle of the MCG with 100,000 screaming supporters all barracking for them. Bullshit. And Twitter is exactly the same way. Instatroll and, all of them. Same kind of deal. I guess Elon's one has probably eased up a bit now because he's in control and he's managed to sack all of the little butthurt bastards that were running Twitter up until he got in charge. But as for Discord and some of those other chats, I have a mate who is right into these Twitter spaces, right? And God love him. He's tried to get me into them on a couple of occasions just for chats, and it just hasn't worked out. I've either been working or forgotten or there's something else happened. It's never hooked up. It's not that I wouldn't do them. It's just that for whatever reason, it's never really happened. Now, there might be a value in something like those Twitter Spaces. I don't know. I did listen in on one once, but I've not played around in them enough to know if there's too much value. Personally, my immediate reaction to something like Twitter Spaces is, here's a target. Let me put it on myself. Now let all you left-wing numbtards come and attack me. I'm just trying to find a nice, polite way without swearing. So I don't know. I don't care enough to be a target. I don't care enough what you think of me to be listening to what you have to say to me, much less try and justify what I say to you. I can agree, and I have agreed with many people who have a vastly different opinion to me as to what's happening in the world. Some people have told me I'm absolutely crazy, and some people have told me I've got no idea what's going on. I'm a lunatic, and yada, yada, yada. Well, that's fine. The difference between me and them is I don't hate them for having a different opinion. They seem to hate me for having a different opinion to theirs. This is, in fact, the crux of what I find most disgusting about this whole argument, the division that it creates. Because there is no reason we should dislike each other because we have a different opinion. Okay? I can't see why that would be a problem. Some of the best creative decisions come out of different opinions. All right? A multitude of different opinions. Some of the most amazing inventions in our history have come out of different opinions. Now, those people went on to work successfully together to create some of the most amazing things in our history. They didn't like each other much, but they could work together. But we seem to have lost that ability to work together, and I don't understand why. It has something to do with the programming they've given us. I know that. But I'm trying to find the moment where we seem to lose it. Where did we give up caring about the stranger that falls in the street? I was told a story today in China. Oh, in fact, I think maybe it was told on the show last night. In China, the Chinese people have been trained, if you like. They view the world much differently to Australians. They view life, the quality of life, much less the cost of life, in a very different way. Babies can drop on the street in China and be stepped over by people, not worried that a car will run over the baby in 5 seconds. Now, anecdotal evidence, I'll admit, but we've heard stories about this for years, particularly with babies that were born that might have been female, and the CCP at the time didn't want females. They wanted males, good workers. Then they figured out eventually that they needed to have females because the breeding plan wasn't going quite to plan, and the population wasn't growing. So they went back from their one-child policy and are now encouraged all Chinese to have 2 or 3 children. Obviously, the state of living has improved remarkably in China in the last 20 years. So there is a much broader middle class in China now. There is still a very poor class. The middle class is reasonably wealthy, and then there is an uber wealthy class above them. I don't know how China is going to fare when all this changes, because let's face it, they've eaten everything in China. The Chinese have eaten. You've eaten every other part of the chicken to figure out that only the feet are left. What can we do with the feet? There are no birds, and this is the same for many parts of Africa. There are no birds left because they've killed them all for food. Everything is gone for food, particularly in areas that have been ravaged by drought and all that sort of stuff. But in China, everything has been used for food, from insects up. And if they can't grow enough of their own food, then they start to starve. it's going to be interesting when this whole big reveal happens. China will be essentially open to the world, and the world will be open to the Chinese people. If they want to travel, there will be no impediment to them traveling. Will it all happen overnight? No, I don't think it will. I think maybe that level of freedom of travel for all of us around the world is going to be phased in over a period of years. And some of us may not live long enough to see it. I think that's probably going to be the case with a lot of what's going to be phased in. But we will have enough on our plates to deal with in our lifetime, have no doubt. And with luck, with prayer, with solidarity, and with friends and communities like yours, we're rich anyway. Keep building those communities. Keep building a My Place. Get a My Place at your place if you haven't got one yet, because this is where the community is building from. The movement around Australia is growing. I think close to 170 destinations now around Australia. Some are still getting their meeting places together. All are having meetings once a week. And many have got their own clubhouses now. So it's a growing movement. And all this has happened in not even 12 or 18 months. Where are we going to be in another 12 or 18 months? Where would we be if Jasara kicks in? All our financial issues are sorted. No more financial stress. And we have a few bucks we can spend in our local community ourselves to improve our situation. It's an exciting time ahead, folks. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. It is a blindingly exciting time coming our way. But if you're a normie and you can't see it, I feel really sad. It's a hell of a show. It's a hell of a movie. Hell of a movie. And I keep having to remind myself that it is exactly a movie. I'm just going to try and bring up, I think you saw a little bit of this the other night. This document, he says, trying to find it. I'm going to have to share that. No, remove that and share a different thing. This is an extremely interesting website. It's called the documents.info. 1776 Nation. This is put together by one Derek Johnson. If you haven't been on Derek Johnson's Telegram channel or you haven't heard of who Derek Johnson is, go to Rumble right now and look up Derek Johnson. Now, here are a great many of Derek's posts where he lays out in exquisite detail exactly why there is a military operation going on at the moment, why exactly Donald Trump is not the president but is the commander-in-chief. He will explain in exquisite detail in many, many, many hours of videos that he has put up. I'll just get the first one to show you. He will explain exactly what the US military code is all about and how orders work. And particularly how all sorts of orders work. Now, you can see here he's talking about Executive Order 12148, signed by Jimmy Carter, which is called the National Emergencies Act of 1976. Now, if you want to get a breakdown of that, he has supplied the link. There are various links because there have been amendments. Then old W. Bush signed the National Security Presidential Directive. These documents are all documents signed by former presidents that are setting up national continuity policy. This is the FEMA policy for the continuity of government. It's a presidential directive establishing a comprehensive policy on federal government structures and operations in the event of a catastrophic emergency. This is what they tested out over the weekend. All right, this is where all the congressmen and senators disappeared into. There is the true definition of a presidential directive. Another definition. Anyway, you can read through these yourself. I would urge you to do so, because what he's giving you here under the Stafford Act and all these guides to different statutes and codes is proving that these codes actually exist. They are exactly as they seem to be. That means that should a president follow a certain set of guidelines, those stipulated by previous presidents, then other measures have to happen. That includes what happens if an emergency is declared by the president. There is no higher emergency than a presidential declaration of emergency. And then Trump made 3 of those declarations while he was president. All 3 fell on deaf ears in the Congress. The military, as outlined in these documents here, waited 12 months when no action was taken. They are automatically triggered. It's in the US Constitution. So if you didn't believe that there is a war going on, have a look at all of this stuff that Derek Johnson has put up here, and a whole heap more on this documents.info website, thedocuments.info. And I think you will find many hours of very enjoyable reading there. I know I have. It explains everything. And when we talk about presidential orders, executive orders, then we are talking about 3 in particular that Donald Trump wrote from 2018, around the end of August, early September 2018 onwards. And they are significant for what they put in place. And what was put in place was funded, was created, and is currently in full operation. It's just done so in a way that the normies refuse to see it, the mainstream media refuse to report it, and while all that's going on, I guess the dickheads just keep driving around and around and around and around and around and around and around on the road until I'm given control of this. Ooh, in bloody deed, that'll be right. God, give me control of that thing for a day, we'd clean up the roads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!